You said something slightly wrong in a meeting 3 years ago. You still think about it. Nobody else in that room remembers it happened. Not because they were being kind, because they were thinking about their own version of the same thing. In 2000, Thomas Gilovich, Victoria Medvec, and Kenneth Savitsky ran a study at Cornell. They asked students to put on a t-shirt with a large, embarrassing image on it, then walk into a room where other students were already working. Afterwards, they asked the wearer to estimate how many people noticed the shirt. Then they asked the people in the room. The wearers guessed roughly double the number who actually noticed. Half the audience they were imagining did not exist. You have access to your own experience continuously. You cannot stop noticing yourself. So when you try to estimate how visible something is, you start from your own vivid awareness of it, and you adjust down. The adjustment is never big enough. This is the same mechanism as anchoring. You start from a number that is too high, and you do not travel far enough from it. The same research group found a companion effect, and it is arguably the more useful one. They called it the illusion of transparency. The spotlight effect is about how visible your appearance and actions are. The illusion of transparency is about how visible your internal state is. How nervous you are, how much you dislike the food, whether you are lying. In one set of studies, people asked to tell lies consistently believed they were more obvious than observers actually found them. The liars felt transparent. They were not. This is why public speaking advice is so often useless. People tell you nobody can tell you're nervous, and it sounds like reassurance. It is a finding. Your heart rate is deafening from the inside and completely silent from 3 meters away. There is a mechanism that keeps this running, and it is worth naming. Feeling watched makes you self-conscious. Self-consciousness pulls your attention inward onto how you are coming across. Attention spent monitoring yourself is attention not spent on the conversation. So you perform slightly worse. You lose the thread, you miss the joke. Then you take that as evidence that the worry was justified. The loop closes. Notice what actually happened there. The scrutiny you were afraid of did not cause the problem. Watching yourself for the scrutiny caused it. It applies to your successes too. The thing you were proud of, the joke that landed, the work you were pleased with. Those get noticed less than you think as well. The spotlight effect is not specifically about embarrassment. It is about visibility in general, and it runs in both directions. There is a second effect stacked on top. The fundamental attribution error is our tendency to explain other people's behavior by their character and our own by our circumstances. So when you stumble, you assume observers are drawing conclusions about who you are. But observers, if they noticed at all, mostly are not thinking about you. And when they do, they have their own version of the spotlight running. Everyone is the main character in a film nobody else is watching. It is worth picturing the room from the other side in detail because the abstraction does not land. You walk in convinced everyone registered the thing you're worried about. Here is what those people are actually running. One is rehearsing something they have to say in about 4 minutes. One is deciding whether the message they sent this morning read is short. One is hungry and has been thinking mostly about that for 20 minutes. Two are having a conversation and have not looked up. One is genuinely paying attention and will retain roughly the gist by tomorrow. That is not a room being unkind to you. That is a completely normal room. Every person in it is the center of their own version of this, running the same calculation about themselves. The attention you're bracing for is not being withheld. It was never allocated in the first place because it was already committed elsewhere. Try to remember what a stranger near you was wearing yesterday. Not a friend, a stranger, someone in a queue. You cannot. You were physically present, your eyes worked, and the information did not survive. That is the level of attention you are receiving. It is not an insult. It is arithmetic. Attention is finite and mostly spent on the self. This one has a rare property. Knowing about it actually helps. Follow-up work found that simply telling people about the spotlight effect reduced their overestimate. That is unusual. Most cognitive biases survive being explained. So the practical move is to say it to yourself explicitly in the moment. They're not thinking about this. They're thinking about themselves. It sounds glib. It happens to be accurate. Several honest limits, and they matter. First, if your job depends on a specific audience watching you closely, they're watching you closely. The effect is about incidental observers, not people whose attention you have deliberately bought. Second, repeated behavior does get noticed. A single stumble does not. Being late once is invisible. Being late every week becomes your reputation. The spotlight effect will not save you from pattern. Third, and this is the one that gets skipped, some people genuinely are scrutinized more than others. If you're the only person of your background in a room, the assumption that nobody is paying attention is not automatically safe. The research was mostly run on university students in low-stakes settings. Do not take a finding about embarrassing t-shirts and stretch it over someone else's lived experience. The relief here is narrow but real. Most of what you replay at 2 in the morning was never recorded by anyone else. 3 things you can actually do with this. 1. When you catch yourself replaying something, ask what you remember other people doing that same day. You will come up with almost nothing. That is the symmetry, and it is the whole argument. 2. Separate the stumble from a pattern. Ask whether the thing you were worried about happened once or happens repeatedly. Once is genuinely invisible. Repeatedly is worth fixing, and worrying was never the fix. 3. Put the attention back outward. Since self-monitoring is what degrades the performance, the move is to get interested in the other person. Ask them something. Listen to the answer properly. That is not a social trick. It reallocates the attention that was going into surveillance of yourself. And it works whether or not the anxiety goes away, which is the point. It is worth being blunt about what this bias actually charges you. The obvious cost is the discomfort, the replaying, the 2 in the morning inventory of everything you have ever said. That is unpleasant, but it is not the expensive part. The expensive part is everything you did not do. The question you did not ask, because it might sound stupid. The job you did not apply for, because someone might notice you were not qualified. The thing you did not try in public, because the failure would be witnessed. In every one of those, the deterrent was an audience. And the research says that audience is roughly half the size you are imagining, and paying substantially less attention than you think. You're not being cautious in front of a crowd. You are being cautious in front of a projection. That is the actual finding, and it is not a motivational line. It was measured. 2 things, and they pull in slightly different directions. The first is the relief. Almost nobody is watching, almost none of it is retained, and the incident you cannot let go of was never encoded by anyone else. The second is less comfortable and more useful. If nobody is watching your failures, nobody is watching your attempts either. The same anonymity that spares you the embarrassment also means you could try things without a permanent record forming. Most people read the spotlight effect as reassurance and stop there. The sharper reading is that it is permission. The room is not evaluating you. It never was. That is either a comfort or an opportunity, depending on what you do next.